Hey, what's up, everybody? This is an open discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're doing something a little different than we've done in the past. We are talking about Midnight Mass again. Now we did talk about it already, but at the time I had only seen 3 episodes, and Cheryl had seen the whole thing, and I was giving my own opinions about what I thought was going to happen, and like how I felt about those first 3 episodes. But Cheryl couldn't really comment on my thoughts because of the fact that she was trying to make sure that I wouldn't be spoiled so I could still enjoy the rest of the show. So since then, I have finished Midnight Mass, and now we can properly talk about the show as a whole. So, obviously, spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about the entirety of the minis or the limited series. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get right into it. All right, Cheryl. So,
Yeah, I mean, I am so glad that I can finally actually talk about it because last time the entire time I was just like, no comment, no comment.
yeah, although I was impressed with how much I picked up on. Like there was a lot that I was right about that I was like, yes, I'm so
Yes.
so happy about.
Yeah, I mean, when I first watched it, I wasn't really like paying very close attention to all the details because I was like, oh, it's just something we threw on. I wasn't
Yeah,
like really invested in it. I actually thought it was a little boring because there was so much talking.
right.
But then, and this is exactly where you stopped. And then where we picked up again, episode 4, is when I got really into it because I was like, oh my god, did they just kill the main character?
Yep, yep. That's how
Yeah.
they ended that episode,
And
and
it's the middle of the series.
yeah, and like, well, and the other thing about that episode is that it starts to confirm the things that you kind of suspect. Because in our last segment, which by the way, guys, reminder, this is a part 2 of a conversation. So even if you have seen Midnight Mass and you want to see what we talked about before, go watch our first video. But when we saw when I was talking to you about what I believed was happening, and I said how I thought that um, the pastor, the reverend or whatever, that he was a vampire. And I remember you saying to me, "Yeah, but your thought process was why is he able to go out in the sun?" And I remember responding to you being like, "Maybe this is some new age vampire. I don't know. Twilight ruined everything." But in reality, I did stop and think about it, where I said, "Why? Yeah, why is he able to go out into the sun?" I'm sure he's a vampire, and I thought he was using his blood, but I was incorrect with that. It turns out he was using the elder vampire's blood, obviously, and that makes a lot more sense. But you can use any person that's turned can use their blood to turn someone else, thus being the rules of a vampire. But in episode 4, they actually confirm that he is actually turning, and it just wasn't fully done, which is why he was able to be in the sun. But in the next episode, in episode 4, he actually is actively hurt by the sun.
And that's because he did wasn't it he ended up dying and then
Yes.
he accidentally killed Joe and then drank the blood and that like finalized everything.
And you know what? I didn't realize that until you just said it. Um, but holy wow, you're right. Like I remember I obviously you figure it out as you keep going that the thing that's required for everyone to actually turn is that one, you need to have the blood inside of you, but the transformation isn't complete until you die. I didn't even think about that for him. I completely forgot that he actually did die at one point and then was brought back, and that's why he became it. So before that, but that's so weird to me because I would have thought that he died when he got first bit by the vampire when he was still old, but I guess he didn't die then. He just kind of went unconscious and had because he was also fed the blood. I guess he just didn't die back then.
Yeah, it's like exactly what happened to Riley. The angel drank his blood, but then fed him the blood in return, so he came back to life, I guess, but not in a dead way because the rules is like you have to drink vampire blood and then die and then drink human blood to become a vampire. So that last part he didn't quite do yet. All he really did was drink the blood. But it was just, he also had blood taken from him, just like Riley.
Right, and another thing about Riley is that Riley was killed actually after when the vampire was eating him. The vampire then broke Riley's neck actually, and that's when Riley died. So the vampire actively did kill Riley. So it was just that was man. I was like, dang, dude, that poor guy. Um, but yeah, that was a very big surprise for me, and the mystery or what was fun was having the other characters slowly start to figure these things out. So the doctor on the island, when she's looking at the woman, Erin, is that her name? I think
Aaron, yeah.
Erin's blood.
Mm-hmm.
And she leaves her blood out and it's in the sun and then it catches on fire. I like was giddy with joy. It was just like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Because the show starts doing it's doing something that we've seen before, as far as like, we know vampires, we've seen vampires in other mediums and stuff like that, but it's taking it and putting it into a different context. And it's amazing how much just taking a similar theme or similar idea and just moving it into a different place can change how you interact with it, how you engage with it. So now we have this whole thing of how a religious group reacts to a vampire when one person that is leading the religious group sees the vampire as something that's majestic and good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack here, really. And one of the things that I really liked about it is, well, one, they never even mention the word vampire. And
Nope.
then, yeah, so it's kind of like a purposeful thing that you leave out, kind of like how in The Walking Dead they don't call
They
them
never say
zombies.
zombie. Yeah.
It's just like a unacknowledged thing, and I don't really know if I like or dislike it. I think I like it because it just kind of leaves it more as a mystery as to like what's happening here, as opposed to like, oh my gosh, this like thing that we thought was like fiction is now nonfiction. Um, and then we have, the doctor taking a scientific viewpoint on it as a contagion and everything. And so it's kind of more zombie like than vampiric, I think, in that case, because of the way that she analyzes it. So I thought that was a really cool thing that they did with the whole idea of vampires that we don't usually get in a vampire story. So I just really like that scientific part of it. Plus, I really dig how all the women in the show have a really strong presence. Like they're all like quite strong, not like, maybe not in like strength, but by like will, I guess, and heart. They're not like, oh, save me kind of women, which I really like. They're all very like strong women, like not needing a man to like help them do anything.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I really like the science aspect of the show too. I like how they tackled how this could actually happen. And I'm like you, where I'm not sure if I like the fact that they don't bring up vampire or not, because at some point I'm just shouting at the screen, "Vampire, vampire, vampire! What's wrong with you people? Don't you know vampires?" But to like, just like in The Walking Dead, where it seems like they exist in a world where zombie movies aren't a thing. If this is a world where vampires have never been seen, I think that that's still interesting, because then it allows for the characters to still need to discover things. It comes down to like what kind of show you're trying to make, because if they live in a world where they know what vampires are, well then now it's okay. Let me figure out which of these rules actually apply versus which of these rules are made up for fiction. But in the case where they don't know these things are real, or they don't know what a vampire is, then it's pure discovery, because they just have no idea. So they figure it out. And they even talk about how the blood reacted to the sun, but why it's not killing everybody else. Like, they don't know the whole thing that they need to die for the transformation to be complete. But the science that they postulate is just is all based on quantity, where they're saying, oh, the blood that we have is not so it's not so strong yet. Like it's in there, but over time it might come work out of your system, or the fact is that there's not enough that the sun will pierce your skin and then like affect your blood. But for someone like Riley, he has more concentrated amounts in his blood, so when the sun and the UV rays hit his skin, the blood ignites because he has higher concentration. Whether or not that's actually how it happens is irrelevant. The science just sounds really interesting, and it could be what is actually happening in this supernatural sense, or something that we see as supernatural. This could actually be a realistic reason for why this happens.
Yeah, definitely agree. It's just a really interesting take on it.
Right. So
um, Go ahead.
okay, and then and so there's just a lot of other things that end up happening throughout the episodes. Like, so we find out that Riley actually isn't dead, obviously, and we see that he's turned. And then they do this whole thing where they are tying Riley's dream to basically what ends up happening to Riley by the end of his journey, about him being on the boat and before he's alone waiting for the sun to rise, and then he's not alone and Aaron's with him, and then and that was such a harrowing scene for me. Like I love the way that it was done, but oh man, did it leave me scarred. Like I was watching these things at night and like right before bed, and it's a great moment. It's really well done. He's on the boat. He the moment like where Aaron's asking him, "Did you bring me out here to scare me?" And the moment he says, "I didn't bring you out here for you," it's none of that. Like right before he says it, I realize why he's there, and then there's just this dread of, you brought yourself out there because you're about to kill yourself in front of this woman so that you can prove this thing is real. Even though you could have just as easily proven it was real by like putting your arm outside a window while you're indoors and having the smoke come up, that also would have proved your point. But I think story wise, I think Riley was just done. He was tired. He was ready to move on. And on one case, I get it. On another case, it's like I'm pretty sure Aaron would have rather you been alive, dude. But as far as like how it plays out in the moment, it's really cool to see Riley right before the sun comes up, and then he's ready for it to hit him, and he opens his eyes and he sees the girl that he killed waiting for him on the boat and grabbing his arm and walking with him. And then it cuts to reality, and Aaron is just screaming as he's burning. And then when the credits come up, it just keeps playing her screaming. It's just a constant cut of her just like, there's no music, the only audio is just her on the boat screaming, and they just let that rock out for the entire credits. And I just sat there just shook, just like, wow, what did I just watch? What a way to end the night.
Definitely. I mean, I that's definitely one of the things that I remembered the most is how crazy that scene was. Like how, like what a jerk. How could he do that to her and just like
Yeah,
die
right.
in front of her? But at the same time, I think there was a little bit of setup because they were talking about death and like what happens
Mm-hmm.
when you die. But also, like, I agree with you. I think he was pretty much done. But also that I think he didn't want to live that way either. He didn't want to be a part of that. So, and that just kind of added to him being done. That just kind of pushed him over, in my opinion. And I also thought that they were maybe trying to sway it both ways to make us think that maybe he was going to kill her on the boat. But then, like, have that also be like a little bit of a twist. I'm not too sure about the intention there. But
Mm-hmm.
either way, the scene was super powerful. The way that that episode was edited was really well. I like how they started off that way because, he had been missing.
Yeah.
And then and then now we get to see his point of view of what happened to him, like while the whole time that he was gone. Because they have this moment where they kind of leave us on the edge of our seats because he dies, like he gets attacked by the angel, and we don't know what happens to him. But then we don't really find out until the very end of the episode that he's alive. But then we have all these questions of like, well, what happened? What happened? He's alive. Is he a vampire now? Like, what is it? And so then we get the backstory, and that's what that episode. So I definitely would say that out of all the episodes, that one was my favorite episode. It was just very impactful.
I think I agree with you there. Like, what the other episodes, there's other crazy things that happen, and obviously the story goes bonkers. But I think just from a standpoint of just editing, intrigue, music, execution, like I think I agree with you that that was my favorite episode too. Because even though I like some of the other episodes, I can pull up some more problems that I might have with them. Um, but in general, outside of the whole thing of Riley just, killing himself in front of this woman that really cares about him, I I can, like you said, I can kind of work it out of how he doesn't want to be this thing. He doesn't want to live as this thing, especially because it seems like it's only a matter of time before you you hurt someone that you care about. Although it's interesting that his father, when his father ends up being turned, his father makes an active statement to say, "I didn't hurt anybody," and make sure that he says that it's it it's not like you can't fight it. It's you're still you. And I thought that that was pretty interesting because that was very contrary to what we had been told up until that point. Because everybody else that we had seen turn, it was just like they just couldn't resist.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's just kind of a strength of will. Like, he saw what happened to everyone else and happened to him, and so tried very hard not to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I I would agree. I do think that it was weird that he couldn't resist because I feel like the mayors and his wife they probably would have killed their daughter, but I think that they would have killed their daughter because they want that life for her as well. Um, I'm not sure if they would do it because they want just like they're just blood hungry. I think it's
Right.
a double motivation there. So I think that also plays in a part into it. But then also Riley couldn't resist drinking the blood. But yeah,
Yeah.
who's to say?
Yeah. So I don't know, but I I do know that. So what I want to ask you actually was, what did you think about the reveal that Monsignor Pruitt, that the whole reason that he brought the angel to the island wasn't necessarily for the congregation and everything. Yeah, that was extra, but it was primarily to save um, this woman. I forgot her name, but the doctor's
Millie.
mother. Yeah.
Millie. Yeah. Um, I could see that because it made him young again, and the only other person that's really old on the island is Millie, and obviously they had an affair together.
Right.
So I could see that, but I also think that he saw that it could do more. Like, it was not just for him, but it was also for other people, and
Hmm.
in his mind, you know, seeing an angel and he's following the instructions from an angel, and it's only doing good things for him and his people. It's like a win-win until everything kind of gets crazy.
Right. And so as far as the angel goes, there's some things I'm confused about when it comes to the angel, because in some ways the angel seems like it's very intelligent, right? It seems that it has base. It seems like it has understanding, and there are other times it just seems like almost like a wild animal, right? And it almost seems like it's not that smart. Like the creature itself gives into its own urges, and that makes it dumb. It sits there and just eats a person while it's getting oil, fuel doused on it. It sits there and eats while it's getting its wings cut. And albeit in that one you can't feel your wings getting cut, but you might not feel your wings getting cut. But in the other one where it's getting the fuel doused on it, it's like you can feel them tossing something on you, and any smart anything is going to know what's about to happen to it, but it lets it happen. But at one point it shows up and it's wearing like a gown and stuff inside the church, and it looks like it understands what's happening, and it's playing this game as if it actually is an angel when it knows it's not. So I was confused at the level of its intelligence.
Yeah, I think I was a little bit too, because it seemed like he had to have spoken with Pruitt to, have him figure all that out and how to like bring him over to the island
Right.
and everything, and like you said, dressing him up. But then like when he's drinking blood from a person, I feel like he just gets so consumed by the blood, drinking the blood, that he like nothing else really matters. Because he does notice he noticed he got shot, but he was like, I'm not gonna die, I'm a vampire. So I think that's part of why, like maybe that's why you're getting a little confused there, because he's acting like an animal. But I think maybe he was just overconfident
Maybe.
about dying, like because he's like, I'm not gonna get hurt because I'm a vampire. I'm not gonna die. I can't die. The only thing that can kill me is the sun, basically, and I'm not in the sun. So or fire, I guess. But there was no fire yet. Once there was fire, then he flew away. And then for like the part when Aaron was cutting holes in his wings, he did look. He was like, what is going on? But then she was like, no, focus on the blood drinking. He's like, yeah, you're right. You're right. This I'm not gonna die. So I feel like it's just kind of it's like drinking blood is like ecstasy. Mm-hmm. So it's too hard to focus on anything else because he's having such a good time.
Losing himself in the blood.
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean that makes a lot of sense, and yeah, I got that too. Just I was just like, this guy.
Yeah. I think the only other thing that I really, really want to cover is Bev and how much she sucks. But I think we all know that there are some people out there who are just like her. Maybe not as intense, or maybe as intense. I'm not really sure. But I just kind of thought, it was interesting how her character was written, where there's like a Bible verse for everything to turn any wrong thing into a right thing, including murder. And somehow she recites all these Bible verses that make the fact that Father Pruitt, or Monsignor Pruitt, kills a guy, like, be it was an accident, but he could have probably saved him, but he didn't because he was blood hungry, and so he basically did kill Joe.
Yeah.
But somehow, through Bible verse, she makes it excusable. Okay. It's justified.
Yeah.
And for so many things, like she just like every single thing that she does that is wrong, she doesn't do it. It's like she has a thought, but she decides not to do it until she finds a way to make it justifiable by a verse in the Bible.
So yeah, and that's the whole reason the fire starts. Like that's why she lets the fire burn after she tries to burn these people out of the house. I do like the fact that by the end, her and Pruitt are on different sides of the conversation, because at least because we talked about how this show definitely feels like it's just attacking religion. It's not necessarily a balanced point of view, but in that moment, it felt a little more balanced, at least for me, looking in, because it felt as though Pruitt was connecting to the important facets of religion, while Bev was distorting it to suit her own desires. And from saying that she's going to lock people out of the rec center, but then he says, well, the church is open, because if it's not open, then like it's what is this about? Like, it's a church, it has to be open to everybody, otherwise it's not God's house. Even how he's saying that it's not about me, it's not supposed to be about me, it's supposed to be about God, and he gets like angry in that moment. So I liked that, at least his character, like I like his character a lot, because up until that point I feel like he's just this religious zealot almost, and like he's blind to all these things. But I guess the story is basically saying he's blind because he wants so badly to believe that this is good, and because he wanted to save Millie. But then at the end, when he recognizes that it is wrong, he reconnects to his true faith. And I think also that's because of his daughter, because she's strong enough to not take the easy road. And I think that that's pretty interesting. So I really like Pruitt's character as a whole, especially because of the fact that we get to see what the extreme actually looks like in Bev. So when we see Bev and Pruitt side by side, we realize, oh, they're not the same person. They're actually very, very different. And Pruitt, at the base level, is a good person. But Bev, like Millie said, is not a good person. Or not Millie, like the mom said. Like, she's not a good person.
I really like how, when she was confronting them, she basically told Bev that that God loves Riley just as much as her, even though Riley did some bad stuff, and that it bothers her. She's like, why does that bother you? Like, do you really think that doing all this stuff is going to make you more important? It doesn't. And I think that was like a kind of like a cool, almost like a wake-up call for her, but she was like, never mind, forget it, because like I'm just gonna do whatever I want because I can justify it with a Bible verse.
Right. No, I like that scene a lot too. I mean, and Bev ends up being a coward, but the other thing we have to talk about the bonkers church scene. We have to talk about that next to last episode, where things just go haywire, when it all starts and it's supposed to be very controlled, and then it just explodes into craziness. Even thinking back on it right now, I don't even know how it got that bad, but I guess because everyone just started drinking, and then because the Monsignor had been shot in the head, he couldn't like help usher them in. So they wake up and they're vampires, and there's these new sensations, and so all of a sudden they start biting somebody, and then that kills that person that didn't drink, but that person still had the blood inside them from communion. So now you just killed somebody, and now that person becomes a vampire. Now they kill somebody else, and then before you know, you have a church full of vampires. Like you said, it's basically zombies, and it just balloons out of control. But it's also very interesting to think that most of the people on the island, except for Sharif, basically have two lives, because they all have the communion, so they will all die. And if any of them die, they'll just come back. But he's the one person that if he dies, that's it, because he never took communion. So I just thought that whole just element was interesting.
And the doctor too.
And the doctor, she never took blood either. Yes, so she's another one that only gets one death.
Yeah, so it's like a video game. How many lives do you have?
Right? Everyone else got two lives.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like that all kind of went down because of Bev pushing Pruitt to do this on that day where they weren't quite ready yet. And then to add to it, I don't think they ever really expected Sharif to be there, and he had a gun, and so that it all just kind of like turned into chaos. And then Bev was like, lock the doors, and then okay, now open the doors, and like none of that was what Pruitt would have done. So Bev sucks.
Yeah, she absolutely does. And yeah, and then like the other thing was, so for the final episode, as a whole, I like it, but for a show that up until this point had characters doing very believable and smart things, these people got really dumb. And I couldn't, because the moment that everyone in the town burnt down all the buildings, so Fine Bev made everyone burn out all the houses, so now they're all in the rec center. At that, and they're no longer chasing the few like normal people like left alive. I could not understand for the life of me why they felt like they had to burn it down right there. Like, I didn't understand why they didn't think to themselves, okay, well, let's all wait for them to go inside. The sun comes up, they can't leave. We just burn it down. What are they going to do? Come outside and try to stop us? They'll die. Like, literally, there's nothing, like, because Bev burned down every other building, if they're all in one building, that just makes it easier to kill them. So you actually don't need to kill them right then and there. You can wait for the sun to come up and then burn down the place with them inside, and there's nothing they can do about it because they can't come outside to stop you. So I just couldn't for the life of me why these characters would actively choose to do this right now when everybody, all the vampires were already about to just move in and go to sleep.
Right. Yeah, that one I also remember having a problem with. And then I also thought that it was dumb for Bev to like. Well, I mean, she was just trying to be all like, "Oh, Noah's Ark."
She's religious.
Yeah, but I also thought that was dumb because then it would mean that there's no safety for them at all.
Yeah.
Especially since they knew that the boats were burned. Oh, and no, they found that out later.
She found that out later. Yeah. But
yeah, overconfident.
Super overconfident. But then like the humans also got super overconfident too because they didn't need to risk their lives at that point because Bev had already destroyed it. But
maybe they were also just kind of like they had to, it was a race for time too because they had to stay alive to be able to do that. So where would they go? But my initial thought was like, why don't they all just get to a canoe, wait out on the ocean until morning, and then go and burn everything down while everyone's inside.
I mean, yeah, there's that too. But there's also that point where like the vampires had stopped looking for them because they all had to get like the bell was rung, so all the vampires went back so they could go inside before the sun came up. So they were safe no matter what. So yeah, like that was the only thing that I thought was dumb, that I did not like. But I also thought that it was unfortunate because I feel like Erin dies twice because she would maybe die. Actually, I don't know if she dies. It made it look like she dies when the vampire's like eating her, because they have that whole montage. But technically, she'd come back to life because she's a vampire, or she has like the blood inside of her, and then she would burn alive. So I was like, oh no, Erin, I'm so sorry. That's so terrible.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of those little things, but I think I really enjoyed the last episode because everybody dies, so I was just all excited.
I knew that you would. I watched it and I was just like, oh, this is why Cheryl loved this show so much. Literally. I mean, masterfully done. They're singing as the sun comes up, and then the singing just cuts off. Like, very cool. And then the last line is one of the most poignant lines that I've seen for an ender for anything. I like that says so much and it's great, but it's a simple line, but with context, it holds power. The line of "I can't feel my legs," and any other time that line is like as a line of horror, like oh my gosh, it's terrible. But in this, it's a line of hope because her ability to feel her legs was tied to the creature, and we don't get to see the creature die. But when she says it, it confirms that he did. And I thought that was amazing. I thought that was great.
Yeah, and it also meant that she was back to normal.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I as far as that element of the ending, loved it. There was just little story things that I understood. They needed these things to happen because they needed to basically kill off this entire island. And the way that I suggested it would allow for people to live. So I get it. It's just unfortunate that it felt like it went against the logic of what smart characters would do, even Bev herself.
Yeah. And just real quick, because I know we're running out of time, I just wanted to say that I thought that this series was pretty cool in that they show all the different levels of and different kinds of people that there
Mm-hmm.
are in, this religion, not just this religion, but even Muslim religion,
Mm-hmm.
because Sharif's faith is different from his son's. And then, obviously, like, there's a whole bunch of characters that are, going to the mass and everything, and they all have different levels of faith. A lot of them are dedicated, but then it gets wavered, and then some of them are overly dedicated, and then you have some that are, doing interpretations and interpreting them maybe incorrectly. And then you have people who are using text or verses from the Bible to serve their own needs. So there's all these kinds of people that are. I just feel like it represented a really good diverse pool of people. There's not just one kind of like Christian or Catholic person.
Yeah, because you have also the people that are just unquestioning. They just follow whatever is said just because a Bible verse is attached to it, so they will believe anything. So yeah, no, I agree. It's great. So I love the show. I'm glad that we got to talk about it and do it. I like Mike Flanagan. I didn't even realize that he'd also done another horror movie that I loved, which was Oculus. And that's another one of my top 10 horror movies. So this guy is definitely really good. I'd be interested in seeing what else he decides to do if he does another on haunting of some manor or Hill House or whatever, like whatever the season 3 of that would be. If they do one, I'd be interested. And also if he does more mini series like this, I think that be or limited series, I think that could be really cool. So yeah, but what did you guys think about Midnight Mass? Did you see it? Did you like it? Did you think it was bonkers when you finally got to the end? Whatever you thought about it, comment below. Let us know. And while you're down there, if you give us a like, share, and subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we'll see you all next time.